That bag of tortilla chips sitting on your counter right now, the one you reach for during movies, during games, during any moment when you just want something to snack on without overthinking it. The one that says made with whole grain corn, or simple ingredients, or non-GMO right there on the front of the bag in letters designed specifically to make you feel good about grabbing it. You assumed that meant something honest. Corn, oil, salt. That is what a tortilla chip has always been. 3 ingredients, nothing complicated. Nothing that requires a chemistry degree to understand. Here is what almost nobody standing in the snack aisle actually knows before they toss that bag into their cart. The FDA allows a substance called TBHQ, tertiary butyl hydroquinone, a synthetic antioxidant derived from butane, to be added to the oils used in commercially fried snack foods specifically to prevent rancidity and extend the shelf life of the finished product sitting on a store shelf for months at a time. TBHQ is permitted at levels up to 0.02% of the total fat content in a food product, a threshold the FDA considers safe. But the European Food Safety Authority completed a comprehensive reassessment of TBHQ in 2020 and concluded there were sufficient concerns about its genotoxic potential, meaning its potential to damage DNA at the cellular level, to warrant a significant reduction in the acceptable daily intake. A conclusion that led several European food manufacturers to reformulate their products and remove it entirely, rather than risk future restriction. American snack brands have not been required to follow suit, and most have not chosen to voluntarily. Separately, the majority of tortilla chips sold in conventional grocery stores are made from corn that was never subjected to the traditional nixtamalization process, the ancient alkaline treatment that breaks down the corn kernel's outer casing, releases bound nutrients, and fundamentally transforms the nutritional profile of corn into something the human body absorbs and processes differently than raw ground corn flour. Chips made without nixtamalization are cheaper to produce but deliver a nutritionally degraded version of what corn-based food was meant to be. And the non-GMO label appearing on an increasing number of chip bags tells you something specific about seed genetics but tells you absolutely nothing about pesticide use, processing method, or the oil being used to fry the chip itself. We pulled the ingredient labels off 10 of the biggest tortilla chip brands sold across America, the ones sitting in nearly every grocery store snack aisle from coast to coast. We checked what oil is being used, whether nixtamalization is part of the process, what preservatives are present, and how the front of the packaging compares to what the ingredient list actually says. We are counting down from the least concerning to the most concerning, and at the end I'll give you 4 brands that are actually making chips the right way. Let's get into it. Number 10. Tostitos Original Restaurant Style. Tostitos is the default party chip for a significant percentage of the American population, the one that shows up at every gathering, every game day, every cookout, without anyone ever really deciding it was the best option available. It's just always been there. The ingredient list on Tostitos Original is actually shorter than most competitors in the mainstream category: corn, vegetable oil, and salt. That brevity is a genuine point in its favor compared to several brands we'll get to further down this list, but the term vegetable oil is doing significant work there without being specific about what's actually inside it. Tostitos uses a blend that includes sunflower, corn, and soybean oil depending on availability and cost at any given production run, which means the specific oil frying your chip can change without the packaging ever reflecting that change. Soybean oil in particular is overwhelmingly sourced from genetically modified soybeans in the United States, meaning a chip bag that says nothing about GMOs may still be frying in GMO-derived oil even if the corn itself has been sourced otherwise. Tostitos does not use nixtamalized corn in its standard production process, which separates the chip from the traditional tortilla it's supposed to evoke, a name that implies the chips inside the bag are made with the same understanding of corn that has existed in Mexican cooking for thousands of years, the kind of cultural credibility that makes a snack feel like it comes from somewhere real rather than from a production facility in the Midwest. The ingredient list on Mission Tortilla chips includes corn masa flour, vegetable oil, and salt, which at first read looks reasonably clean and traditional. But corn masa flour, the ingredient the chip is built around, can be produced through a real nixtamalization process or through a shortcut called instant masa production, where dried corn is ground and chemically treated more rapidly to achieve a similar texture without the full alkaline transformation that traditional nixtamalization involves. Mission does not disclose on its packaging which process was used to produce the masa flour inside the bag, which means the cultural authenticity that the brand name implies and the actual corn processing behind the product are two things a shopper genuinely cannot verify from the information available on the shelf. Number 8. Santitas White Corn Tortilla Chips. Santitas is positioned as the value tier within the Frito-Lay family of brands, sold at a noticeably lower price per ounce than Tostitos, while carrying the same basic chip format and sitting in the same store aisle, implying to a budget-conscious shopper that this is essentially the same chip for less money. The ingredient list follows the same basic pattern as Tostitos: corn, vegetable oil, salt, with the same unspecified oil blend concern discussed earlier. What's worth noting specifically at the value tier is that lower price points in the snack category are almost always achieved partly through sourcing the lowest cost available oil for frying, and the lowest cost available conventional oils are almost universally the ones with the least favorable fatty acid profiles and the highest likelihood of being sourced from genetically modified crops. Santitas does not disclose the specific composition of its vegetable oil blend on the packaging. Number 7. Store brand and generic tortilla chips sold under grocery chain private labels, the bags sitting on the bottom shelf of the snack aisle, priced well below every named brand above them. This is more of a category than a single brand. Store brand tortilla chips are typically produced by contract manufacturers supplying multiple retailers simultaneously, using whichever corn source and oil blend hits the negotiated price point for that contract period. Ingredient lists across different retailer house brands vary considerably, but the pattern that emerges across them is consistent. Unspecified vegetable oil blends with no origin disclosure, corn that has not been through traditional nixtamalization, and in some cases added flavoring compounds listed as natural flavors, a regulatory catch-all that discloses nothing about which specific compounds are creating the enhanced taste profile that makes these chips more palatable than a simple corn, oil, and salt formulation would naturally deliver. Number 6. Doritos Nacho Cheese. Doritos deserves its own entry specifically because of the distance between what its ingredient list contains and what a tortilla chip is supposed to be. The original concept of a tortilla chip, corn, oil, salt, has expanded in the Doritos formulation to include over 30 separate ingredients on the nacho cheese variety, including multiple forms of cheese powder, disodium phosphate, disodium inosinate, disodium guanylate, and artificial colors including yellow 6 and yellow 5, both of which carry disclosure requirements in the European Union that effectively require manufacturers selling in those markets to print a warning label stating that the product may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. No such disclosure requirement exists in the United States, and Doritos carries no such warning on its American packaging despite the same colorings being present in the product sold here. Number 5. Pringles. Pringles occupies its own strange category in the chip aisle, a product that spent years in legal disputes over whether it legally qualified as a potato chip or a potato crisp, a distinction that had meaningful tax implications in certain markets and ultimately centered on the argument that Pringles was so far from a traditional chip in its composition and production method that it couldn't honestly be classified the same way. A similar argument applies to the tortilla variety. Pringles tortilla chips are made from a dehydrated processed corn flour mixture pressed into a uniform shape rather than from cut or formed corn tortilla dough, a fundamentally different production method than any traditional tortilla chip process. The ingredient list extends well beyond corn, oil, and salt to include maltodextrin, several types of starch, and various flavoring compounds, building a product that mimics the experience of eating a chip through a combination of engineered texture, engineered flavor, and engineered crunch, rather than through any simplified version of what the item is supposed to be at its foundation. Number 4. Cheetos Crunchy. Cheetos is not technically marketed as a tortilla chip, but it sits in the same snack aisle, competes for the same purchase occasion, and its ingredient list represents the furthest point in this category from corn, oil, and salt in the most visible way possible. Enriched cornmeal rather than whole corn or nixtamalized masa, a long list of cheese flavoring compounds, artificial colors including yellow 6 again, and TBHQ listed explicitly as a preservative in the oil used to fry the product. TBHQ appears by name in the Cheetos ingredient panel, which at least represents transparency about its presence. The concern is not the disclosure is actually the more responsible approach. The concern is that a product being consumed as a routine daily snack by children in particular across America carries a preservative that European food safety authorities concluded in 2020 had enough genotoxic potential to require a meaningful reduction in acceptable daily exposure, while the American product carrying it has not changed its formulation and carries no disclosure about that regulatory divergence anywhere on the packaging. If you have made it this far, you're probably already thinking about the bag sitting in your own cabinet right now. Subscribe to the Hidden Receipt right now, because we do this every single week, pulling apart snack labels that most people have never bothered to flip over, so you don't have to figure this out alone standing in a grocery aisle. 3 more brands left before we get to the 4 actually worth buying. And the next one specifically markets itself around natural ingredients and clean snacking. Number 3. Late July Organic Restaurant-Style Tortilla Chips. Late July has built significant market presence specifically among health-conscious shoppers by emphasizing organic certification, non-GMO verification, and clean snacking positioning throughout its branding. The organic seal is genuine and meaningful. USDA-certified organic corn means synthetic pesticides were not used during growing, which addresses a real concern worth taking seriously. But the ingredient list also includes organic expeller-pressed sunflower oil and sea salt alongside the organic corn. And while the oil sourcing is cleaner than unspecified conventional vegetable oil blends, the chip is still not made from traditionally nixtamalized corn, which means the full nutritional transformation that comes from the alkaline treatment process is not part of what makes this chip. You are paying a genuine premium specifically for the organic certification and the non-GMO status, both of which are real and worth having, but the product is not as fundamentally different from a conventional chip at the processing level as its premium pricing and health positioning might suggest to a shopper specifically seeking a traditional corn chip experience. Number 2. Xochitl Tortilla Chips. Xochitl markets itself around authentic Mexican heritage, stone-ground corn, and a more traditional production approach than most mainstream competitors, positioning it at a premium price point in natural grocery stores, specifically among shoppers who are looking for something meaningfully closer to a real tortilla chip than what the standard snack aisle offers. The ingredient list is genuinely short: stone-ground corn, water, lime, and oil. The inclusion of lime in the ingredient list is the signal that nixtamalization, the traditional alkaline treatment process that uses calcium hydroxide or lime, is actually part of the production method here, which puts Xochitl in a different category than most brands covered on this list. However, the oil used is listed simply as oil without further specification of type or origin on certain packaging formats, and when the specific oil type is listed, it varies across their product line. For a brand built around traditional authenticity and charging a premium based on that positioning, the oil transparency is less clear than the corn sourcing transparency that makes this brand stand out from the mainstream. Number 1. Takis Fuego and the broader extreme flavored rolled tortilla chip category. Takis has become one of the fastest-growing snack brands in America, built almost entirely around an intense flavor profile, a distinctive rolled chip format, and marketing targeted heavily toward children and teenagers through social media and influencer promotion. The ingredient list on Takis Fuego extends well past 30 ingredients, including multiple artificial colors, specifically red 40 and yellow 6, artificial flavors, citric acid used in quantities that peer-reviewed research has specifically linked to erosion of dental enamel with regular consumption, and TBHQ listed explicitly as a preservative, the same compound discussed in the Cheetos entry. What makes Takis the most concerning entry on this entire list is not simply that these ingredients appear. Several brands on this list share individual concern. It's the combination of the most aggressive artificial color and preservative profile on the list paired with the most deliberately youth-targeted marketing approach of any brand covered here, meaning the demographic consuming this product most regularly and most frequently is the demographic with the least developed physiological tolerance for sustained exposure to these compounds and the least ability to make an informed choice about that exposure independently. That is the full list. 10 brands, 3 repeating patterns across nearly every entry, unspecified vegetable oil blends that can change between production runs without packaging updates, the near-universal absence of traditional nixtamalization even among brands specifically evoking Mexican food authenticity in their marketing, and a preservative profile led by TBHQ that American labeling rules disclose somewhere in the fine print while European food safety regulators have moved toward restricting based on updated genotoxicity evidence. Before we get to what's actually worth buying, here's what you can check with the bag in your own cabinet tonight. Start with the oil test. Look specifically for what type of oil is listed in the ingredients. If it says vegetable oil with no further specification, that blend can include any combination of soybean, corn, cottonseed, and sunflower oils in proportions that can shift from batch to batch without the package reflecting the change. If it specifies expeller pressed sunflower oil or avocado oil, the sourcing is more transparent and the fatty acid profile is generally more favorable. Then look for lime or calcium hydroxide in the ingredient list. Either of these indicates nixtamalization was part of the corn processing. Their complete absence, particularly on a brand marketing around authenticity or tradition, is worth noting because it means the corn processing step that traditional corn chip making has always included simply didn't happen to the corn you're eating. Finally, look for TBHQ listed anywhere in the ingredients, either directly or as part of a preserved-in statement about the oil. Its presence is legal and disclosed, but the European Food Safety Authority's 2020 reassessment and subsequent reduction of acceptable daily intake is context that doesn't appear on any American chip bag, and that context is genuinely worth having before you decide how regularly a product containing it becomes part of your routine. Now, 4 brands actually making tortilla chips the right way. The first good pick is Siete Foods grain-free tortilla chips. Siete uses cassava flour and avocado oil as the base for its chips rather than conventional corn and vegetable oil blends, which sidesteps both the nixtamalization question and the unspecified oil concern simultaneously. The ingredient list across the core line stays short. The avocado oil sourcing is clearly disclosed and consistently used, and the brand was built from the beginning around food sensitivities and clean ingredient standards rather than retrofitting cleaner ingredients onto an industrial production model that was always optimizing for cost first. It costs more per bag than most brands on the avoid list. That cost reflects real avocado oil and shorter ingredient lists rather than cheap oil blends and undisclosed additives holding the price down. The second good pick is Food Should Taste Good tortilla chips. The brand name is the mission statement. Simple ingredient lists built around whole grain corn, expeller pressed oils specifically named rather than listed as vegetable oil, and no artificial colors, artificial flavors or preservatives across its core product line. Available at mainstream grocery chains rather than requiring a specialty store trip, which matters if you're trying to make this swap practically rather than theoretically. The third good pick is masa chips from brands specifically producing through traditional stone-ground nixtamalized masa, including certain regional and artisan producers available at Latin grocery stores and increasingly at mainstream natural food retailers. A chip made from properly nixtamalized corn and fried in clearly specified oil at an artisan production scale is structurally closer to what this food was before industrial snack production changed the category than anything produced by the brands on the avoid list, regardless of what their packaging says about tradition or authenticity. The fourth good pick, and the most reliable option of all, is making tortilla chips yourself at home from corn tortillas. Buy certified organic corn tortillas, cut them into triangles, brush lightly with avocado oil or high oleic sunflower oil, and bake at 400 degrees until crisp. The total ingredient list of the finished product is corn, lime, water, oil, and salt. You can see every ingredient before it enters the process. There are no vegetable oil blends of unknown composition, no TBHQ extending the shelf life, no artificial colors approximating flavors through chemistry rather than through actual food. The cost per serving is lower than premium branded chips, and the complete ingredient transparency is something no packaged product on this list can honestly offer. Here is the one rule genuinely worth keeping every single time you're standing in the snack aisle. Flip the bag before it goes in the cart. Look for TBHQ anywhere in the ingredient list. Look for vegetable oil without specification. Look for the complete absence of lime or calcium hydroxide in a brand claiming corn chip tradition. Each of those 3 things tells you something specific and real about what you're actually buying that the front of the bag was designed to make sure you never thought to ask. If this changed how you think about something as routine as reaching for a bag of chips, hit the like button. Tell me in the comments which brand was in your cabinet, and subscribe to the Hidden Receipt so you catch it every single week we open up another snack label the industry was hoping you'd never flip over. Stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.